Hey guys, I'm Amaroth and I have just went through my channel and I have realized that I have forgotten to finish M2 tutorial series. So this is the last part of M2 tutorials, probably, and it's time to get to it finally. So let's assume that you've got object file and you have converted it to M2 by using object to M2 script, and now we've got our M2 file, our skin file, and our BLP texture. So what to do with those? Well, skin file and texture file, those can just go here. We don't have to worry about them anymore because they are basically finished. But what is still important for us is M2 file, because this M2 file, if it is in default setting, in which it is when it gets out of Object-M2 script, it just doesn't work very well. It tends to disappear when it's close to screen borders, it doesn't have a render flags set, and so on. It can't be used very well as an item. So we need to set some things up by hand in 010 editor. Now I assume that you have watched my 010 editor tutorial and you've got it set up. You've got set up my or Alastor's M2 script or M2 not M2 script, M2 template, and we've got those two scripts which I have shown in the tutorial, and this is the third script I have created now. So you've got three scripts actually. Now, when you open this MTU in 010 editor, it looks really like this. It's just a horrible mess, and that's what the template is for. So we go to template, Alastor MTU, and now we've got this structure here, and we can browse it in this manner. So we've got basically names assigned to these values. And this may look a little bit intimidating, but really you won't need to worry about most of this stuff at all, at least not usually, unless you want to make some quite unique edit or whatever. But what will be important for you, like near every time, is this pair of structures, not transparency but textures and render flags. So these two structures are very important for us because we will use them a lot and often. Now you don't need usually to set this up by hand, because those scripts are actually what this is what those scripts are for, to set those things for you, but they are using just some default values which usually work. That doesn't really matter that they should be used always. What you should really do is get your MTU, which was created by object to MTU script, open it in 010 editor, and run one of these three scripts. And then, if you want or need to fix that or change some settings which you don't like. So what are these scripts for? Bash MTU script is for trees, bushes, and grass, and so on. So it's made with this on mind. It produces this two-sided and blending mode 1 rendering flags, which means that the geometry of that model will be rendered from both directions. So even when we are looking at faces of that model from their backside, they will get rendered. And alpha testing just, or blending mode 1, I would rather say, just means that transparency should be used, which means that if you've got transparent part of texture, there will be just a hole in game. Yeah, players won't really see anything there. So transparent texture is already transparent in game. That's what blending mode 1 does. And we've got blending mode 0, for example. It means that when you've got a transparent part of texture in game, it will be actually white and it will be solid. You won't be able to see through it. So blending mode, really, most of time you will probably want to use one. Those remaining ones here, you can toy around with them, you can test them. I don't really know what they are for. Usually you will be fine with 0 or 1. Two-sided rendering, well, you should really use it just for bushes and trees and so on, so where it is really needed. But if you don't need two-sided rendering, have this turned off because this just produces performance issues. Because all faces are being rendered even when they are facing another direction. It just means that your model is eating your GPU and your memory. So that's render flags, or those are render flags. And when we take a look at this structured textures, there are only two very important things here. Texture type. It says hard-coded, which means that this path to texture will be actually used. So material which has this texture assigned to it will always use this texture. We can also use this one, cape, and this now says that this texture isn't really to be used. Which texture is supposed to be used is texture which is set in this case in DBC, in item display info DBC. So if you've got if you want to use this model as an item and you want to be able to set which texture should be used by that model or by that item, by that particular item, you will need to use this texture type. So for items which aren't supposed to have hard-coded textures, use always this. So nearly all wizard items have this texture type too, because they are reading name of texture from DBC, so you can have multiple items with the same model but a different texture. That's it. But there's one problem with that. Item display info has only one slot for, or only one field for texture, which means that you can have only one texture which has this texture type on your model. If you've got multiple textures on your item, only one can be set by using DBC, and the rest just has to be hard-coded, because there's no way to set those textures up in DBC actually. Moving on, by the way, body or clothes, I haven't really used this at all. I haven't used 6 or 8 before. Those three texture types are for creatures. Creatures are the same as items. They use usually textures set in DBC. But creature display info DBC has 3 fields for textures, so these are for these 3 fields. So this would say that this texture is taking the first field, or is using the first field, this texture is now using the second field, and so on. So that's what these are for. Usually you will want to use hard-coded for all your game objects, or whatever is supposed to be used as game object always needs to have hard-coded textures. Items and creatures, they can have hard-coded textures, but if you want to be able to set those textures by using DBC fields, well, you need to set either cape or creature skin texture types. So these are texture types. By the way, texture flags always should be free. Just always use 3, that's all. And that's it really. Now, like I said, those scripts can do this for you. And you should use one of those scripts every time, because those scripts aren't just you doing this. Take a look into that script. It runs a template, so you don't need to run the template by hand here. It just runs it for you. Then it sets flags of textures to 3. I said always use 3. And in this case, it uses texture type 2 hard-coded. The another 2 use texture type 2, so cape. Then we've got this blending mode and flag. So this is bash m2 script. So blending mode 1 and render flag 4, 2-sided, 4 bashes, 3s, and so on. This script is for game objects which are solid, which don't have anything like that, which don't have leaves or similar geometry here. These are just some corrections for bounding boxes, or rather animation boxes, some distance fix, and so on. So that's why you should always run one of those 3 scripts, because this is what all of those 3 scripts do. They correct all these things which are done in improper way by Object-to-M2. Object-to-M2 model is, well, Object-to-M2 is a script which is a little bit broken, so this basically fixes all those bugs produced by that script. So that's it. Usually for most of modules you would just run it or open that module in 010 editor. Just go to scripts, select one of those, so you've got the object or module which is supposed to be used as tree, or it is bash or whatever. It has some geometry you can see through and which is supposed to be rendered from both directions. Well, bash MTU script. You want just some solid MTU like this ballista is. You have seen this ballista in one of my previous tutorials. Well, then you want to use the second one. Is it supposed to be an item? Is it supposed to use a texture which is in DBC? Well, use the third one. And that's really it, one of those three. And then if you want, or rather need to, you can change one of these settings here by hand. By the way, those scripts also save your file. So what they do is that they open it by using template, they run these commands here, and then they save that file. So you should keep this in mind when you use a script on your MTU. That MTU gets overwritten and edited immediately. But what this is good for, you can just grab MTU script, use this script, and done. This is very quick, so it saves some clicks, some keyboard shortcuts, and so on. By the way, if you are curious what MTU structure is like, or which settings are doing what, and so on WoW wiki, you can see this MTU web page where MTU structure is just explained. I've got to say that even to me, most of this stuff doesn't really make much sense, and I have been modding World of Warcraft for 6 years now, so I don't really expect many of you to take a look here. Don't worry, this is intimidating even to me. But maybe you will need to take a look here and you will find something useful here or something that you will need. And so that's it, guys. If you are interested in more advanced stuff, if you want to make animations or particles or lights or whatever else, whatever advanced, so if you don't want to use just one, if your model isn't supposed to be just a static model which isn't moving and so on, I am not perfect guy for you. I am not an expert on MPU. I have never said I am one. I have actually said multiple times that I am no expert on MPUs. So this is probably as far as I can get you with MTUs. So if you are curious about MTUs, if you want to learn more than this, you will need to take a look at, for example, Alastor's channel. So I will link Alastor's channel in the description. I've got to say that these videos are very long and it's sometimes very hard to guess what the hell is he doing there. But it's probably one of the best references you can get here. Or you need to ask another modders to make advanced MTU tutorials, because sadly I am not a perfect guy for that. So my apologies for not being more helpful in this case. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was somewhat useful to you, this whole MTU series. And as always, happy modding.